Have you ever wondered what really went on behind the gilded doors of ancient palaces? We see the grand monuments, the glittering treasures, and the epic tales of conquest. But there's a darker side, a truth that ancient kings and emperors desperately tried to hide from the history books. And today, we're going to uncover it. Let's start with a simple yet chilling fact. For many ancient rulers, power wasn't just about governing, it was a performance. And the stage was often soaked in paranoia. Think about the Roman emperors. Many of them, like Caligula or Nero, are famous for their erratic and cruel behavior. But this wasn't just a personal failing. It was a symptom of a system where a single whisper of treason could get you killed. Emperors lived in constant fear of assassination, and this fear drove them to extreme measures. They would execute senators, family members, and even their closest friends on the slightest suspicion. The good emperors, like Augustus or Trajan, were exceptions, not the rule. For most, life at the top was a terrifying balancing act. But it wasn't just fear that defined their reigns. It was a carefully constructed illusion of divinity. Take the pharaohs of Egypt. They weren't just kings. They were considered living gods on earth. This wasn't just a title, it was the ultimate political tool. By claiming divine status, the pharaoh placed himself above all human law. Questioning the pharaoh was questioning the gods themselves. This belief was reinforced through massive construction projects like the pyramids and temples, all designed to showcase their eternal power and connection to the cosmos. The immense human cost of building these monuments, the backbreaking labor, the injuries, the lives lost, was a price the pharaohs were more than willing to pay to maintain their godlike image. It was a truth they buried under tons of stone. This concept of divine right wasn't unique to Egypt. Across the world, from the emperors of China who claimed the mandate of heaven to the Inca rulers who were seen as sons of the sun god Inti, the story was the same. The mandate of heaven was particularly clever. It meant that a ruler's right to govern was granted by the gods, but it could also be taken away. If a dynasty was plagued by famines, floods, or rebellions, it was seen as a sign that they had lost the mandate. This gave a veneer of justice to dynastic changes, but in reality, it was a brutal cycle. Ambitious warlords would use any disaster as an excuse to seize power, claiming the heavens were on their side. The common people were just pawns in this celestial power game. And speaking of pawns, let us talk about the people who truly paid the price for this royal ambition, the common folk. While kings built their golden legacies, millions lived in conditions we can barely imagine today. In ancient Rome, the spectacle of the Colosseum, with its gladiatorial games, was designed to distract the populace from their poverty and lack of political power. It was bred in circuses, a way to keep the masses entertained and subdued so they would question the vast inequality. The truth the emperors didn't want you to know was that the entire magnificent structure of their empire rested on the shoulders of slaves and a perpetually struggling lower class. Now, let's journey east to the courts of the Ottoman sultans. The Topkapi Palace in Istanbul is a place of breathtaking beauty, but within its walls lay a tradition so dark it's hard to believe. It was called the Law of Fratricide. When a new sultan ascended the throne, he had the legal right and often the political necessity to execute all of his brothers. This was done to prevent civil wars and succession disputes that could tear the empire apart. Imagine living your life knowing that the day your father dies, your own brother might order your death. Princes were kept in a gilded cage known as the kafes, often in isolation, waiting for one of two fates, the throne or the silk cord of the executioner. This brutal practice secured the power of one man at the cost of his own family. It was a secret kept within the palace walls, a family tragedy played out for the sake of an empire. And what about the women in these royal courts? Queens and princesses are often portrayed as figures of grace and diplomacy, but their reality was often far grimmer. Their primary role was to produce heirs, securing the dynasty's future. Their marriages were almost always political alliances, tools to forge treaties or acquire territory. They were traded like valuable commodities. A princess's personal happiness was completely irrelevant. Furthermore, court life was a web of intrigue. Women in the harem, for example, were constantly vying for influence, not just for themselves, but for their sons. The mother of a future king could wield immense power, but the path to that power was treacherous and often deadly. Their stories, full of ambition, sacrifice, and suffering are frequently erased from the male-dominated historical records. Another dark truth is the sheer scale of human sacrifice that underpinned many ancient civilizations. We often associate this with the Aztecs, and for good reason. Their religion demanded constant offerings to the gods, particularly to Huitzilopochtli, the sun god. They believed that without human blood, the sun would cease to rise. This led to ritual sacrifices on an industrial scale, often using prisoners of war. The capital Tenochtitlan was designed with this in mind, with massive temples built for public ceremonies. But the Aztecs weren't alone. Evidence of ritual sacrifice, though perhaps on a smaller scale, has been found in cultures all over the world, from ancient China to Celtic Europe. It was a way for rulers to demonstrate their piety and power, a terrifying display of control over life and death itself, all framed as a sacred duty. The final, and perhaps most pervasive secret, is how history itself was manipulated. Kings and emperors were the primary patrons of historians, scribes, and artists. Do you think they were going to allow unflattering accounts of their reign to be recorded for posterity? Of course not. History was propaganda. Victories were exaggerated, defeats were minimized or blamed on others, and the ruler was always portrayed as wise, just, and heroic when a new dynasty took over. They would often systematically rewrite history to delegitimize their predecessors and glorify their own rise to power. What we read in ancient texts is not a neutral account of events. It's a carefully crafted narrative designed to serve the interests of the powerful. The real, unfiltered truth of the past is something we can only piece together from archaeology. From texts written by their enemies and by reading between the lines of their own official stories. So, the gleaming crowns, the majestic palaces, and the epic stories of glory hide a much darker reality. A reality of crippling paranoia, divine illusions, brutal suppression, and rewritten histories. The ancient world was not a fairy tale. It was a brutal, high-stakes game of power, and these are the truths the kings never wanted you to know. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey into the shadows of the past. If you found this fascinating, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more hidden histories. Let me know in the comments which ancient rulers' secrets you find the most shocking. See you in the next video.